The government was closed, but hunger was not. As the doors of federal buildings slammed shut and the halls of power fell silent, a different kind of crisis was unfolding in homes across America. The shutdown wasn't just a political standoff, it was a daily struggle for survival for millions. In November 2025, a record-long government shutdown left millions of Americans in limbo, especially the 42 million relying on SNAP for food. Across the country, food banks saw lines stretching around the block, and social service offices were overwhelmed by desperate families seeking answers. For many, the uncertainty was almost as painful as the hunger itself. With federal funding frozen, families faced the terrifying prospect of empty plates. Refrigerators grew bare, pantries emptied, and dinner tables became battlegrounds for tough choices. Parents tried to shield their children from the reality, but the fear was impossible to hide. SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is more than just a government benefit. It's a lifeline that keeps food on the table for millions. Without it, families were forced to stretch every dollar, count every coin, and make impossible decisions. SNAP is a lifeline, and without it, parents had to choose between rent and groceries, between paying for medicine or buying enough food to last the week. The stress was relentless, and the stakes were heartbreakingly high. For some, it meant skipping meals so their children could eat. For others, it meant falling behind on bills, risking eviction or losing heat in the dead of winter. Every choice came with a cost, and every day brought new uncertainty. As anxiety grew, a dramatic legal battle erupted, pitting the Trump administration against states and advocates demanding immediate aid. Lawsuits were filed, emergency hearings were called, and the nation watched as the fate of millions hung in the balance. The Supreme Court was drawn into the fray, with one justice stepping into the spotlight. The justices faced a moral and legal dilemma. Could the government really stand by while families went hungry? The question was brutally simple. Would the government allow millions to go hungry, or would it act to protect the most vulnerable? For families across America, the answer would shape not just their next meal, but their faith in the nation itself. The legal fight over SNAP benefits moved at breakneck speed. When the Trump administration warned that November benefits might not be paid, lawsuits flew. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson issued a brief stay, pausing the crisis for review. The First Circuit denied the administration's request, clearing the way for payments. Briefly, states began processing benefits, but the USDA ordered them to stop, plunging agencies into chaos. A federal judge blocked the USDA's reversal, but the administration made a last-ditch appeal to the Supreme Court. Each step deepened uncertainty for 42 million Americans. The final appeal set the stage for a high-stakes Supreme Court showdown. Justice Jackson, overseeing the emergency application, acted fast. She set a strict deadline. The administration had until 4 p.m. to justify blocking payments. Her urgency signaled the court wouldn't tolerate delays with millions at risk. When the Supreme Court extended the stay, SNAP payments remained frozen. Jackson was the sole dissenter, arguing for immediate aid. Her dissent was a declaration real-world harm outweighed legal technicalities. She lost the vote but made her position clear. Human dignity must come first. The Trump administration's legal team pointed to the Anti-Deficiency Act, a federal law that strictly prohibits government agencies from spending money not specifically appropriated by Congress. They argued that without new funding, it would be illegal to continue paying out SNAP benefits no matter how urgent the need. This, they insisted, was not a matter of choice or policy, but a binding legal requirement that left them with no room to maneuver. The administration maintained that their hands were tied. They weren't targeting or punishing SNAP recipients but simply following the law as written. They also claimed that by adhering to the Anti-Deficiency Act, they were protecting other vital programs, like WIC, from being jeopardized by unauthorized spending. In their view, upholding the law was essential to maintaining the integrity of the entire federal safety net. But states, advocacy groups, and affected families saw things very differently. They argued that the consequences of withholding SNAP benefits would be immediate and devastating. Millions of families would face empty refrigerators, children would go hungry, and food banks would be overwhelmed. For them, the law's technicalities paled in comparison to the human cost of inaction. Lower courts largely sided with the advocates, ruling that the government's primary duty was to prevent catastrophe and protect vulnerable citizens, not to hide behind bureaucratic technicalities. Judges emphasized that the law should serve the people, especially in times of crisis. Judge Talwani, in particular, criticized the administration's approach as arbitrary and chaotic, suggesting that their rigid interpretation of the law created unnecessary confusion and hardship for those most in need. At the heart of the debate was a fundamental question. Should a procedural violation, however serious, be allowed to outweigh the certainty of widespread hunger and suffering? Was it right to let legal formalities take precedence over basic human needs? Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent powerfully echoed these concerns. She argued that the courts should prioritize the real-world suffering of families over abstract legal doctrines, and that the law must be interpreted in a way that protects people from harm. In the end, the two sides seemed to speak past each other. One focused on the letter of the law and the importance of statutes, the other on the urgent reality of survival. The case became a stark illustration of how legal arguments can sometimes clash with the needs of everyday people, leaving the courts to grapple with where justice truly lies. State agencies, responsible for distributing SNAP, were thrown into chaos by conflicting federal directives. After the appeals court ruled, states rushed to load benefits onto EBT cards. Then, the USDA ordered them to reverse course, risking system errors and further delays. Administrators were caught between court orders and federal memos, unable to give families clear answers. Judge Talwani blamed the confusion squarely on the administration. The chaos wasted time, eroded trust, and left millions wondering if they'd be able to buy food. The system designed to help people was nearly broken by its own government. Behind the legal battle was a staggering human cost: $4 billion in aid for 42 million Americans. These numbers aren't just statistics, they represent real people, real families, and real struggles happening in every corner of the country. The stakes were enormous, and the consequences of delay rippled far beyond the courtroom. SNAP isn't a luxury, it's survival for families, children, seniors, and people with disabilities. For many, it's the difference between having a meal on the table or going to bed hungry. It's a lifeline that keeps hope alive for those facing job loss, illness, or unexpected hardship. Without it, millions would be left to navigate an unforgiving world with little support. Delays meant empty refrigerators and skipped meals, especially for 14 million children. The impact was immediate and deeply personal. Parents forced to ration food, children distracted by hunger in classrooms, and seniors skipping meals to stretch their limited resources. Local stores and food banks braced for economic shockwaves as SNAP dollars stalled. Small businesses, already operating on thin margins, watched anxiously as customers disappeared. Food banks, the last safety net, scrambled to meet surging demand with dwindling supplies. The uncertainty rippled through entire communities, threatening jobs and overwhelming charities. Volunteers worked overtime, and store owners worried about layoffs. The sense of anxiety was palpable, as everyone wondered how long the crisis would last. The legal fight held people's health hostage, turning food into a political bargaining chip. In the halls of justice, arguments over policy and procedure overshadowed the urgent needs of millions. The fate of families hung in the balance, decided by those far removed from the daily realities of hunger. For millions, it was a story of fear and hardship, choosing between food and medicine, or simply going without. The stress took a toll on mental and physical health, deepening the cycle of poverty and despair. Every day, tough choices became the new normal. While lawyers debated statutes, the real deficiency was empathy for those left hungry. The true crisis wasn't just legal, it was human, unfolding in kitchens and communities across America, where the need for compassion was greater than ever. The crisis ended when a funding bill restored SNAP, but the legal battle left a mark. Justice Jackson's dissent forced the administration to defend putting law over lives. Her stance set a moral and legal baseline: government must prevent predictable harm. She signaled she'd scrutinize any executive action that inflicts widespread suffering. Her dissent became a landmark, a warning to future administrations. While the majority's order faded, her words will echo in law schools and future cases. She lost the battle, but won the war of ideas, reminding the nation what's truly at stake.